The downside to having a money-losing team is that it can strip you of your billions of dollars. The negative aspects of having a team that loses money is that it takes you down with it. Picture two businessmen. One has a chain of car dealerships and is able to make $20 million profit per year. The other has a pro sports team that, on the books, suffered an $11 million loss last season. Mention to a banker which would be the better investment. Dealerships, of course. Then have that same banker tell you which one he wants to have. All this video is one flip. It's strange as a sports team. One half of the time they run at a loss, but the owners of them continue to get richer and richer every year despite the scoreboard. After witnessing how it works, you'll never think of a franchise sale in the same light again. First off the bat, and most important of all, what people aren't getting right, the product itself. It's generally believed that the worth of a team is in their ability to win. Raffle for championships, trophies, and banners in the rafters. It's a pretty good tale, but it's not the place where the money resides. The real value of a franchise is its membership card, a thing much more mundane. In any big league, there are a limited number of seats at the table, and they're set, even forever. No one can create a new league today and say that their team is part of the club that matters. The old owners operate the door and only open it when they see that it's in their own interest. If a league is in the process of expanding, the walk through that door has become ridiculous. The latest new ownership team to enter the premier market, however, had to invest already in excess of $1 billion just to get in. The new owners in a top-tier market, however, just had to shell out an enormous amount of money, much more than $1 billion, before they could even be members. That money can't purchase equipment, real estate. It's a fee that's paid to those already in the system for their reduced share of a pie with one more mouth. To give you $1 billion and then leave and have nothing but a seat. This is scarcity that is created and done by design. There's more land that can be farmed, more land that can be irrigated and cleared, more untouched land that can still be brought into use. Now compare that to a league roster spot. Anyone with the necessary capital can go buy more land to farm. No one can make more slots in a 30-team league. It is not the production of the asset that is valuable. This is because it cannot be duplicated. Partly that's why teams are costly. It doesn't provide a justification as to how they become more expensive as they continue to make losses. To do so, you need to trace the source of that cash, and it's rarely the stadium turnstiles. If you ask any layman about how a team makes money, you'll get responses such as tickets, jerseys, beer, parking. Revenue, of course, but limited and capped. There are a fixed number of people that can sit at a stadium. Each season has a definite amount of home dates. There are really no more hot dogs to sell. Regardless of the outcome on the field, the two most significant expenses are increasing yearly: player contracts and stadium debt. It is this squeezing that has made a popular and overbooked club so much money and yet so many times been losing. So, what is the source of the real number? Broadcasting. In particular, with a live sports game that might be the only one remaining that is still viewed in the same way as it is broadcast live, rather than skipping around or muting ads or watching highlights later. Such undivided attention is almost a thing of the past in the media today and is valued at a high cost by advertisers. The big news that should put you off is that these packages, in the big leagues, are in the billions of dollars over the course of the contract, and that money is distributed evenly between all teams in the league, from champion to dead last. This number is hardly affected by your win/loss record. Whether it's good or bad, your presence in the league is what propels it. Which brings up a big question. How can a bad team get almost as many points for the broadcast as a good team, yet not every rich owner just fill their team with superstars and send the rest of the rosters to the dumpster? For the leagues will not allow it. A league that will see the same three teams win all the time becomes one that eventually is no fun for fans to watch. And of course, it's not fun for the wealthy owners at the end of the road either. Thus, in the major leagues, all major league facilities have guardrails. The salary caps are really a maximum cap on how much a team can spend on players in the selected year, and the cap increases by tens of millions of dollars nearly every year anyway. Profit-sharing agreements send a significant portion of the profits of large franchises back to other markets, which are smaller. It isn't generosity, it's insurance. The less that the weak teams perform, the less interesting the product is, ratings drop all over, and even the granddaddy franchises lose value with it. There's a great deal of money available to be dished out to the poor by the rich, since a good league is more valuable to everyone than a lopsided one. For the fans, the stadium is often the part that isn't considered, the one that's paid for by the public, not the man whose name ends up on the front of the building. A brand new stadium these days can run past $1 billion easy, and in deal after deal, the city ends up footing a huge chunk of that bill, not the owner. We're talking bonds, tax breaks, straight-up grants, sometimes covering more than half the total cost. So how does a private business talk a city government into handing over that kind of cash? Simple. Leverage. Teams are scarce. Every city without one wants one badly enough to make bad decisions, so an owner can quietly float the idea of relocating unless the city builds him something new and shiny. Most cities fold. The economists who look into this stuff without a stake in the outcome keep finding the same thing. The promised economic boom almost never shows up. Money spent at the game is usually just money that would have gone to the restaurant down the street anyway. It doesn't grow the pie, it just moves slices around. But none of that bothers the owner, because the luxury suites, the naming rights, the concerts and conventions held there on the 50-some days a year there isn't even a game, that revenue is often entirely his, sitting completely outside any revenue-sharing formula the league imposes. And the smart owners don't stop at the walls of the building. A team might play 10 home games a year inside that stadium. That leaves the other 350-something days doing nothing, and ownership groups have figured out how to fix that. They build hotels around it, office towers, retail strips, entertainment districts that use the stadium as the anchor instead of the main event. Land that was worth a few $1,000,000 a decade back can end up worth hundreds of millions once a proper neighborhood grows in around it. And most of the foot traffic through that district shows up on days there isn't a game at all. At that point, you have to ask what business you're actually looking at. It stops being a sports team with a side hustle and starts being a real estate company and a media company that happens to field a roster, because the roster is what pulls the crowd in to begin with. None of this runs smoothly all the time, though, and the cracks show up whenever the deal between the players and the owners falls apart. Every one of the major leagues has, at one point or another, lost a chunk of a season, sometimes an entire one, to a labor dispute. Players and owners unable to agree on how the money gets carved up. When that happens, every dollar tied to game day vanishes instantly. No tickets, no local broadcast fees, no parking, no concessions, nothing. Meanwhile, the fixed costs don't care. Stadium debt payments still come due. Long-term contracts still have to be honored. Staff still needs paychecks. It can take years for attendance and trust to fully come back afterward, because a real chunk of the fan base just stops showing up and doesn't rush back. The lesson sitting underneath that story applies to every league, not just the one it happened to. Owning a team means you're not only betting on your own decisions, you're betting on a bunch of billionaires and a players' union continuing to agree with each other, season after season, on how to split an enormous and growing pie. When that agreement breaks, even for a single year, the bill lands on the owner no matter how well he ran things. Put all of it together and you get a loop that feeds itself. You buy in. Scarcity means nobody can water down your position by setting up a rival across town. Broadcast deals get renegotiated every handful of years and have, historically, only ever gone up. The land around your stadium keeps appreciating the way prime real estate does. And because leagues behave like protected cartels, rising costs get passed straight through to broadcasters, sponsors, and fans, largely shielded from the downturns that would flatten an ordinary business. Franchise values across the big leagues have been compounding at double-digit rates for years running, a return that makes most traditional portfolios look half asleep by comparison. Which is exactly why owners basically never sell, even with a jaw-dropping offer sitting on the table. Selling means a massive tax bill and giving up an asset that's compounding faster than almost anything else the money could go into instead. Why would you cash out of the machine that keeps printing money just to go hunting for a new one? And that's also why billionaires keep lining up to buy into a business that sometimes loses money in a given year. There are thousands of billionaires walking around the planet, and only a couple hundred franchises worth owning across every major league combined. That scarcity buys something a stock portfolio simply cannot. A seat at a table almost nobody else on earth can reach, no matter their net worth. Cities bend zoning rules and tax treatment just to keep an owner's team happy. A private box turns into one of the most effective rooms in the world for closing deals that have nothing to do with the sport itself. The team can be the least profitable business in a man's entire portfolio and still be the most valuable thing he owns, because it's the one asset that makes every other business he touches just a little bit easier. So next time you watch a team blow a lead in the fourth quarter and wonder how the owner sleeps at night, remember, he probably isn't thinking about the scoreboard at all. He's thinking about the next broadcast negotiation, the next stadium lease coming up for renewal, and the next parcel of land going up for sale right across the street from his building.